Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the love and all the support of this amazing journey. I couldn't have done it without you. I stand here very emotional for all the love and the blessings that I've been given. Incredible. And before we start, I just want to send out a few thank yous to you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your loves, all of your prayers, all of your support. It's been overwhelming. How many people have reached out? How many people have congratulated me? How many people have sent little things? All of the above. It's been truly a gift that I could never repay. So thank you. I obviously also want to thank God. Might not be a bad idea. My partner, my buddy, my best friend. This dance that I've been able to do in this lifetime goes beyond anything I could have ever imagined. Anything. And it always came down to this connection that I've had that is just such an amazing part of my life, and I'm so incredibly grateful for. So, of course, thank you, God, for everything in my life. Everything. I want to thank my wife. She is actually working right now. She does amazing, beautiful, incredible healing beyond anything that I've ever experienced. And she's actually at a retreat that I just spent 2 days at, and they're wrapping up this morning. And she sends her love and wishes she could be here. Sometimes I don't look at my schedule that great, and when I did this, all of a sudden, there was a conflict. But just know she sends her love, and she is here very, very, very much with us this morning as well. And I also want to thank everybody this morning who is a part of the crew that put together the celebration. There's many, many, many. The Kitchen Angels, Lynn and Denise, and everybody else, from the sound guys to the music guys, everything. Thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me in this celebration. So this celebration is really something that I've dreamed about for many, many years. I remember when I was young, I was given a vision, and this vision was myself speaking on stage, being in front of people, and I knew that I was going to be talking to people about God and reminding people about their divinity, because to me, nothing else mattered. And so throughout the course of my life, in my own way, I've done that. Whether I was in grade school and I was giving somebody a Bible, or I was talking and speaking and doing lessons from the time I was really, really young, it always came down. My expression, the thing that I believe I'm meant to share, is to remind people of their divinity in the best way that I can. And that's where the journey started. So the obvious thing for me to do would have been to become a minister, right? That just makes sense. I mean, this message inside of me, that's what a minister does. And especially when I found unity, then I should have been a unity minister. But that's not the way it went for me. My path was this crazy little dance that I did. And it was trying to understand and trying to feel what it was that Spirit was wanting to do with me. And as I walked through life, there was parts of it where I had this really strong feeling, this really strong desire and drive to dive deep into that. And then there was times when it didn't feel like that. And so I would do this little dance where I would kind of stick my toe in, and then I'd pull it out, and then I'd stick my toe in a little further, and then I would pull it out. And there was this amazing dance with the divine. And for a long time, I played with it. And then there came a moment in my life where I thought that season had passed. I thought it was gone. In fact, I remember in my mind saying, it just wasn't meant to be. It's not what was supposed to happen. And of course, that's where Spirit steps in, right? That's where God steps in. Because Spirit knew that this was my destiny. And although I thought the plan was gone, that the time had passed, Spirit knew better. And it began to nudge me. And in some cases, I would say it was more than a nudge. It was a, hey, we're doing this, by the way, right? And then, as many of you know, the moment when I got a phone call from Charles saying, hey, we need to have a talk, right? And sure enough, Spirit pushed me back onto this path that was always meant to be. It was always meant to be that way. You see, in my understanding of destiny, this is it. This is it for me, to be a unity minister. The writing had always been on the wall from the time I was a little child, when I remember telling my sister that I love God more than I love my own mom and dad. And my sister said, you can't do that. And that's the way it's always been. But there was times when I just struggled with that for whatever reason. And looking back now, I can see where those struggles were. Lack of self-worth, lack of clarity of my own path, not being able to listen to my own spirit, not being able to trust myself, to trust life, to trust God. More fear than I could shake a stick at. And on the list goes. Can anybody relate to any of that? I think we all can, right? But through it all, what always brought me back was the nudging by Spirit to continue. So even in my darkest of days, Spirit was there in its own way, nudging. Keep going, Mike. Keep going. Continue. Even when I didn't feel worthy, even when I wasn't clear on my own path, even when I wasn't able to listen to my own spirit, even when I wasn't able to trust myself, life, or God, and even when I was afraid, I kept going. Because I knew something was in here, something was there that ultimately would lead me back home. I knew that. I knew it. And I kept going through all the hard times. The frustration, the tears, the disappointments, the heartbreaks, all of it. Just like many of you have had. We've all had those difficult, hard times. We have. But through it all, I just kept going. And as I look back, I have to ask, why? Why? It's crazy. All this stuff that I went through. Why? And the answer is really quite simple when I really look back at it now. And that thing that's been alive inside of me is exactly what the Fillmores taught us in Unity. And that simple message was that we're all divine. All of us are divine. We're all children of a loving God. We all have the ability to live a powerful, impactful, meaningful, fun, expansive life. Oh yeah, don't forget the fun. Don't forget the fun, right? And if I would do my best to apply spiritual principles and tools and keep at it in my own way, because we all do it a little bit differently, I could create the life of my dreams. That was the promise. It was a promise that Unity gave us, but I'm going to go way back into the time of Jesus. That's what Jesus was really saying. When you really look at his work, not just the stories in the Bibles, but also the metaphysical interpretations, which are so incredibly beautiful when you boil it right down. It's amazing. And that's what Unity has done for me. Trust me when I tell you, you are looking at someone who is a completely different person and something that I thought I could never have imagined possible when I look back 20, 30, 40 years ago. This is not happening. It's not. Some of you know my story. Their younger years of growing up, and some do not. But let me just tell you that it wasn't very pretty. It was difficult. It was hard, very hard. And while I don't feel like it's necessary to go into all the details, if you want them, you can ask, right? But it was messy. But I can share with you that when I got out of high school, that I suffered from debilitating self-worth, self-esteem issues that impacted every single area of my life. Nothing wasn't affected. I wasn't in good shape. And honestly, I struggled for many, many years. I struggled with my finances. I struggled with relationships. I struggled with my career. Every part of my life was impacted by this thing. And it took a while, but I finally realized and I understood. As I went to Unity and I kept listening to Reverend Gene Sorensen talk, and I kept listening to the messages that Unity had. But I finally realized and understood the way I needed to heal was going to be an inside job. That's how I was going to heal, right? And it's just like the Fillmores and Jesus taught. For me, it just took a little longer to fully grasp the depth and the amount of work that I needed to do with God in order to heal. It was a lot of work, but I kept believing and I kept at it. And here I am. I look at my life now, and I get to do what I love doing. I love this. With all my heart and soul, I love it. I love reminding people of their divinity in the best way that I know how. And I get to do it in a lot of different ways. This is one way, but there's many, many, many ways. And I get to work with people all over the world. I've got clients that I work with, and they're all over the world. I get to come here and share this message. I get to see the people online, and I know this message is going out. Nothing brings me more joy than this. Nothing. Nothing makes me feel more alive. And having this feeling that I'm really, really living my destiny. I am living proof to anyone that what Jesus and the Fillmores shared with you works. I want you to understand that my outside life changed because I, with God, changed my inside life. That's it. It all comes down to that. I rolled up my sleeves. I realized that I needed to go within and I needed to do the work on myself. And with God, I could change my outside life. But it started here. It started here. I needed to go out and clean up all that crap that was in my head that had been jammed down my throat from the time I was a kid, from my parents to leaders to society to everything else like that. All the lies and the garbage that I was filled with, I needed to get rid of and replace them to understand that I truly am this beautiful, amazing, incredible, divine being of light. And that I'm loved. That was a lot of work. That was not easy for me because I certainly wasn't given the message that I was loved when I was younger. That did not happen. And I know the same has happened to many of you as well. Right? But ultimately, what I needed to do was go within, to explore my own thoughts, to find the ones that were telling me I wasn't divine. I wasn't worthy of God's love. I was a victim, not a powerful creator. That I couldn't change no matter what I did. And slowly, over time, I began to wake up and understand that, again, it all came down to me willing to do the work that was mine to do. We all have our own work to do. All of us. And if I roll up my sleeves, I surrender at the altar of God, and I do this dance, my life changed. Right? And again, it didn't happen overnight. Mine was a longer path. It was a longer journey. But you know what? I would not change 1 minute of that journey because of where I'm standing here right now. None of it. Not one bit of it. Because it's been an amazing journey. And you have all been a part of this journey with me. And it's been amazing. And so I want to take a few minutes now and show you, speaking of journeys, I want to show you some of the clips of my recent trip to Unity Village and the ordination. So there's the picture of the famous tower at Unity with the beautiful trees. And for those of you that have been to Unity Village, you know it's just a beautiful, holy, holy, holy place. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Next slide. There's the famous tower, and actually that's standing on the Bridge of Faith as you look at that beautiful tower. Next slide. Yeah, and there's the fountains and the ponds, and just see how beautiful those grounds are that were created. It's just spectacular. And there's the rose garden, and so many, many people have their ashes put into the rose garden. And not only that, you have blocks all around it, and it's just, again, a really sacred and holy space. There's me, smiling, beaming, if you will, as I was getting ready to go in to the actual ordination. There's my beautiful wife and us standing in one of the most amazing sunsets. And just being able to be happy together, to be able to share in that moment with so many others. It was really special. And there's one of the other buildings in Unity that they do a lot of things in that building. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to go into it, but the structure and the architecture of Unity Village is pretty spectacular. Next slide. And there's the, it's basically an outdoor sanctuary. There's a name for it, I'm forgetting it now. But it's just a beautiful, peaceful place where you can go sit, and they have services out there as well. When I see this space, I think about how fun would that be able to create something like that in our new home that we're going to be going to, or we could do services outside when the weather would let us permit it. Just really peaceful, really, really beautiful. And then there's Myrtle's Grove. So this is where Myrtle would sit down and she would spend time, and they made these beautiful gardens, if you will. And you just can go in there and you can actually feel Myrtle's presence. It's incredible to sit in that space. And I did it several times by myself and with my wife. And we could both feel Myrtle's presence as she spoke to us, actually. My wife had an amazing experience with Myrtle when she was down there. And Myrtle came to her at night and did some healing work with her. It was pretty magical, actually. So this is Unity on the Village. So this is off of Unity Village grounds. This is actually downtown Kansas City. And this was Charles's, if you will, his homage to Myrtle. Now, this was built after both Charles and Myrtle had passed. But this is Charles' statement because he wanted to honor Myrtle and create a building. So this is downtown. It's beautiful inside and out. Go ahead, Jim. So there's a lot of historical documents there. So there's Leah looking at the different books as we were flipping through them. And I don't know, but whenever I get my hands on historical stuff, I tingle because there's something magical about the history of Unity. And to be able to see some of the old archives and flip through those books was absolutely one of the greatest moments of the trip. So you can see that one's from February through May of 1913. And the documents that were in there were just incredible. There are notes, and there's magazines, the history. It's just, and there's hundreds of those books that you can flip through as you go through there. And then there's a copy of the famous saying by Charles when he was 94 years old, "I fairly sizzle with enthusiasm and zeal to do that which is mine to do." And there's this, he's 94 years old, and the dude was still cranking. I mean, it's amazing to feel that and to see that. And then there's the other building, and this was probably my favorite. This is where it all started. This is on Tracy Street, downtown Kansas City. You see, when they Fillmore started, they started in their house. And then eventually it got to be to the point to where they said, well, this isn't working because we don't have enough room. And so what they did was they walked into the neighborhood to try to find a building where they could get some space. And so what they did is they went and found this building, and they wound up finding that the place that was using it had the second floor available to them. And so they rented out the second floor of this building, and the exact dates are sometime in the early 1900s, maybe earlier. But this is where it all started. And so, go ahead, next slide, Jim. If you look, this is it. To me, this is holy ground. This is where it started. That's it. The building is old. It's run down at this point in time. It breaks my heart. If I had unlimited money, I would go take that building and refurbish it and store it, and it would become a really, really special place that it deserves to be. But this is it. This is where the Fillmore started. You see how humble that is? A few little chairs, just a little tiny stage, the thing in the back, and I stood there. I could just feel the Fillmores standing there. It was incredible. Amazing to think that while the Fillmores were just getting started, this is where it started to happen. And I started to think to myself, wow, because once they got there, it exploded to the point to where that building, they actually blew out the complete back of it to build an entire auditorium. And not only, go ahead and flick the screen, Jim. Yeah, so there's the auditorium that they built. But they didn't just build the auditorium, they also built several buildings around that area. What I didn't know was they had the largest printing press west of the Mississippi for a while on those grounds. And there was hundreds of people that lived around that area, and there was like 10 buildings around there when it first got going. And they filled it, and it was incredible to see the pictures and feel the energy of that. And there's a chapel, again, where you can see that's where it went from being this really, really simple thing, and now they're starting to grow. And then eventually what happened, after a while, then they started looking at Unity Village, and then they bought the acreage for the village, and then they eventually moved to that. Just like the Unity on the Mall, this Unity also has incredible historical books in it. And so there's just a little bit of a flavor of the different years and stuff like that. I'm telling you right now, I could have stayed there for hours just flipping through this stuff. It was so fun. So, of course, one of the things that you get to do is you get to look through the daily words. And I went and looked up my birthday, so that was the daily word on my birthday. I think it says, I bless and praise the Lord who strengthens me. So that was the daily word for September 3rd, 1963. And you can go and look up what the daily word was, which was pretty cool, right? Here are some more pictures. That is Charles and Myrtle, and it's not a great picture, but you can see them standing there. This is later in life for them, but they were absolutely, totally embodied Christ consciousness at that point in time. Just beautiful beings of light, beautiful reflections, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So there's Charles's desk. So back at the village, in a section that I just called the I don't know what it's called, the library or the archives, the archives. And so they actually have the original Fillmore's offices. And this is Charles's office with the stuff that he had laying around, and that's his actual desk. And again, to be in the presence of it and to feel it is just, it was magical for me. And then, of course, there's Myrtle's desk and all of her belongings and all of her stuff, and just so good and so rich. One of the things that was incredible was there's a hallway, and on the hallway, they have pictures of every single one of the ordination classes that came through. And one of the great honors for me is that I'm going to have my picture in that hallway, just like all the other ordained Unity ministers have, which is pretty cool. This one is from 1930, is it 36? I think it's 36. Yeah, then there's Charles and just a handful. I was really curious to see, because if you notice in that picture specifically, it's all women. It's all women. So it's interesting. I wanted to try and get a feel for, well, when did the men show up? And what's so funny about that to me is if you really study the history of Unity, you better understand that it was Myrtle who started it. She did. She's the one that caught fire. She did. And then Charles kind of tagged along after the fact, but it was Myrtle. And her divine feminine energy was amazing. And then what was interesting is, at first when you see those pictures, it's all women. So you ladies got it. And by the way, side note, we need you so much right now. So much right now. We need the divine feminine. We need that back. So this is us getting ready to go into the ordination, and I'm just going to share something because we're going to show you the actual clip, which is only about a minute long or so. So we go there the day before, and we go through this rehearsal, this practice. And that was kind of cool, and it was just so interesting to go through that experience. But then the day of, and I'll never forget this, is walking into the auditorium. When we, the candidates, walked into that room, I'm telling you, the energy that was coming, because everybody stood up and clapped for us as we walked in. So it was like this moment where you're walking down this runway and you are just being honored and you are being loved on, and you are being, it is truly one of the most beautiful moments of my entire life. To, you walk in and then all of a sudden, all these people are up and they're honoring you for everything that you've done. So it was incredible to feel that. And then I think the video clip is next. So we'll show you the actual minute. Turn it up.
Michael, in the name and through the power of the indwelling Christ, on behalf of Unity Worldwide Ministries, I ordain you a Unity minister.
And that's Reverend Sharon, my mentor. She's just a sweetheart.
Ross.
Yeah. So pretty magical moment for me. And you were all there. I just want you to know that. Some physically, and some just in my heart. So just know that you were there. Very much so. So in wrapping it up, here we are. We're standing here, and I stand here open, honest, real, and ready to serve at the highest level of my ability. It is an honor for me to be the spiritual leader of this church family. It's something I don't take lightly or take for granted. I am humbled, just humbled to be standing here. But I also want to talk about something I think is really important. Because for me, I believe that moving forward is going to look different than it's been. Because the old way, the old model of gathering and listening to the sage on the stage, in my opinion, is broken. And it no longer works. I think these times are calling for a new way. And the reason is because the new way must come from within you. Not from me, not from somebody else, but from within you. Because that's where your divinity is, and that's where your connection with Source is within you. Because if it doesn't come from within you, nothing changes. This new model, this new reality is beginning to be born at this time by us. But it will not happen by following old, outdated models, in my opinion. This new model is going to be on the leading edge because it puts all the power back where it belongs, where it's always belonged, and that is back to you and God and your divinity. Historically, it's been taken away from us. I would argue very intentionally. And what I'm saying is, not anymore. Not while I'm here. It's going to go back to you. You standing in your own divine sovereignty. You experiencing the divine directly. In other words, you accepting your true birthright as a beautiful, shining light of the divine that you are. Can I tell you exactly what that's going to look like? No. Do I have all the answers? No. But I'll tell you this, as long as I'm here, I am going to continue to nudge you, to push you back into your heart. Because that's where everything that you want exists. Everything. Don't let anybody tell you it's any different than that. Go within. That is where you will meet God. That is where you will meet your divinity. That is where all of your power is. It is not outside of yourself. It's not. Inside of you, God is there. Inside of you, love is there. Inside of you, ultimately, you are there. Fully, completely, and whole. So moving forward, may we be the exception. May we be different. May we be an example of this new way. Let's create this new way together. It's not about Mike. It's about us. It's about God. It's about our divinity and experiencing it directly, each and every one of us in our own way. Do this dance. Let's create this new way together. And always, always, always keeping God at the center of it all. You are beautiful. You're incredible. You're an amazing. You make a difference. You matter. You are love. What an honor it is to be here. I'm so incredibly grateful for each and every one of you and for the way that you touched my life. I cannot wait to see what we create together. It's going to be fun. It's going to be crazy. But no matter what it looks like, we're going to do it together. And in the center of it all, there will be God. Because we're going home, folks. We're going home. I love you. God bless.